Hey everyone, how's it going? The name is Blockhead, and today we're going to go over the top 10 questions you will probably more than likely be asked during interview day for medical school. And before I go ahead and continue with the video, I thought I'd go ahead and give you guys kind of like some background as to how you can trust my information. I had 9 medical school interviews, and when you have 9 medical school interviews, you kind of get an idea as to what kind of questions they're going to ask, and it becomes a little bit more fluid as you go through the interviews. And I thought I'd go ahead and tell you guys some of the questions that will probably more than likely show up. A lot of them are just simple basic interview questions that you can probably pull up off the internet, and medical schools like this just because it's very standardized, but somehow you have to gear it towards medicine. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the first question. Is the most generic question you will probably almost always be asked is, what got you interested in medicine? And this one's where you have the free reign to go ahead and kind of dive into your personal statement, because that's what your personal statement should kind of be about, as to what got you interested in it, where's your passion lying into medicine. So that's where you can go ahead and elaborate more on your story, give more details on the story than just kind of spilling out your personal statement. Throw in some more details. One thing I'd probably recommend is on your personal statement, don't tell every story, and when you apply for medical school and you do your secondaries and your primaries as well, don't throw in all the guns and don't throw in all your stories. Make sure you hold some back, so that way on interview day, you can go ahead and throw these extra tidbits, so that way you look like a more interesting candidate instead of just kind of like repeating what's on the personal statement, because they've already read that. So what you're going to want to do is add more details to this, add more juice to the story, if that makes sense. The second question you're going to be asked is, tell me about a weakness you have. Now this is a very common one to get asked on, like even for jobs. So usually for almost all these questions, you're going to want to tell a story. And with this weakness, you're going to want to say a weakness that you have and then back it up with a story of how you recognize this weakness, but you don't want to leave it at that, because if you just tell them this weakness, that means you just acknowledged it and you haven't done anything about it. You want to take it a step further as to, how did you fix this weakness? How did you overcome it? So I'll give you my story. My story was a simple one of, I told them I had a problem saying no, and I went ahead and I worked at a lab. And during the lab, they kept on piling more and more work, and I said, yes, I can do this, yes, I can do it. Eager to go ahead and take on any assignment that was thrown my way, but it got to a point where I couldn't handle it, and I was doing like not so good of a job at my workplace, and they recognized that, and they noticed that the results weren't looking as good, and they realized that I guess you could say my work effort was dropping, and I went ahead and I recognized that, and other people recognized that too, that I was very stressed out. So I went ahead and went to the principal investigator and brought up my case to him. I'm like, look, I can't handle this anymore. I'm stressed out. I'm overworked. We need to communicate. We need to talk things through. And by communicating, I was able to balance my schedule. I was able to find a good balance of work, and to a point where I can go ahead and satisfy the workload around the people around me and be happy with the work that I'm putting out as well. And it's kind of like that communication skill is something that's very crucial in the medical field. So it's like, yes, I recognize the weakness and I did something about it. And that's kind of the story that they're shooting for. Something like a weakness, and then how did you overcome it? And this is why this is a strength for me in the medical field. Another one is, tell me about a strength you have. This could be again, tell a story, and make sure you tell a story that's not on your application. Something that shows and reveals the strength and character that you have. A fourth question is, why did you pick fill in the blank school? Why did you pick us? Why did you choose us? And I think that's a very common question. So I'd say shoot for whatever the school is known for. If you're applying to a research school, you better whip out your research and brag about that. If you're a primary care, if you're at a primary care school where it's like heavily focused on the community, then shoot for something that goes ahead and focuses on the primary care. It's pretty much that simple. if it's a prestigious school, shoot for research. If it's more of a primary care based school, focus on primary care. If it's more urban, focus on the urban community. If it's more rural, then focus on the rural community. Stuff like that. Those experiences kind of build up to that's why you're interested in this school. Fifth question that we have is, do you have any questions for us? It's always a very common question at the end of almost even job interviews as to, do you have any questions for us? And the reality is you should always say yes. Never say no. That's bad. If you say no, it makes you seem like you're not interested. And if you say yes, never say the most common thing most students say. Is it pass or fail? Is it letter grade based? If you ask this question, it comes off the wrong way, no matter how you look at it. It's either A, you're not very cooperative with your classmates, you're cutthroat, you're competitive, they don't like that. Or B, you're lazy, you're looking for just to pass. And it's always gonna look negative on your end. So make sure you don't say that. What you're gonna wanna say is, A, if you have a really good interaction with the interviewers, you're gonna wanna say like, hey, I'm interested in the area. So ask them for hotspots, things that match with your hobbies in your application. Just be like, hey, I like doing this. What do you guys have to offer here? So that way you're getting yourself involved in the community. Even though if you don't even go there to see it, you can at least just say, hey, what's interesting here's something I like to do. What's interesting that you guys have? Another thing you can also ask too is like, the opportunities they have for minority students, maybe if they have certain communities that they can reach out to, especially if you're African American, if you're Hispanic, if you're Native American, or if you're Asian or whatever, you can go ahead and ask those questions like, hey, do you guys have services that go ahead and are specific to that serve these communities? Because I'm Mexican, I want to serve this community. I think those are the best questions you can ask during the interview. Okay, so another one is, what do you do on your free time, or what's your hobby? And this is it's a very common one that they will ask you. That's pretty much what you put down on your application. I know there's a spot that you can put down for your free time and hobbies, so you're going to want to elaborate here what you like to do and how it affects others around you. I think that's a pretty fun thing to do. It's like if you draw, you can say like, hey, I draw this, and what I do with my art is I go ahead and you encourage those around you with your art, because you surprise people with gifts of art, or I don't know, something fun, or something that gets you involved in the community, things of that nature. I know for me, I said that I do streaming, and I ring that in because I did a lot of charity streams. So I said I would get involved in lots of different communities, and I really didn't want to emphasize the point that I did like gaming streaming. So I just said I did live streaming, and I would gather different communities online, and what we would do is we'd go ahead and have discussions and talk, and during this time we'd go ahead and link with a group like American Red Cross or Jude's, all those communities. Just be like, hey, we branched out, we reached out to people, we organized an event, and we made something happen. And this is what's fun for me. And that's usually how you're gonna want to shoot out your hobbies. Next up we have is tell me about a challenge and how you overcame it. It's kind of similar to the weakness story, but it's more focused on a different, it could be any challenge that you faced. And usually for me it's like workplace problems. That's what I kind of brought up in my interview, where I was like, oh, there was a person in lab, I really couldn't cooperate with them. That was kind of creating a hostile environment. So what do you do about that? And the best thing to do for me, what I said, I was like, I went ahead and confronted them. We talked things through. It turns out there was like a miscommunication, and things got better. The relationship between me and the coworker who were having beef got better. Of course, I didn't say, we had beef, but in a more proper terms, that's what you would kind of want to get at. That's how I said it. You guys can say whatever story that you guys have. Of course, make it personal. Don't just copy paste what I say. And let's see. Next question. Usually they're going to shoot for morality questions. These questions are going to show up more than likely for whatever is relevant at the time. So when I applied for medical school, the big thing was healthcare for all, and I want to say a lot of immigration. This was during like the 2016, 2018, around that time zone. And immigration was a huge policy right now. They're like, well, do immigrants deserve a health care? Do they not deserve health care? What's your stance? And but yeah, you're going to want to say, like, I believe in universal health care. I believe in whatever. Well, I mean, it's pretty straightforward on this. Just try to take the more humanitarian approach to these questions, and you'll never get it wrong. The 9th question that they'll ask you is, if we rejected you, what would you do? And if you get that question, don't get nervous. Don't think that the interview is going bad. I've got asked that question multiple times, and I got into the schools. They ask this question just to see your personality. As for me, the best response you're going to want to give them is, if I got rejected, I'd reach out. I'd say, why? Well, what made me a weak applicant? And then, based upon the response they give you, and you have to be realistic and think forward. You're just kind of like, well, was it my GPA? Was it my research? Was it community service? Whatever that weakness is, you say that you will strive to fix that on your application, and you will apply next time. And you'll have more confidence, and you'll go ahead and strive harder, and you'll work in areas that they even didn't tell you to do. Because it's just kind of like, you told me just to work here to get more hours, and it's kind of like, well, I would go ahead and scribe. I'd do this. I'd shadow a doctor. I don't think you have to get super dig into the weeds, but just know that you want to look more competitive. Just say, like, I'll strive harder. I wouldn't, get discouraged. I'd search for answers, and then I'd go ahead and apply those faults that you found to make it better for my next time I apply. So another question you might be asked, if you have like a glaring weakness, is like, hey, why did you score poorly here? I know I got asked that question a lot for my MCAT score, because I took it twice. I failed the first time around, and then I improved by like 14 points. So I know when I first took it, they were just kind of like, oh, you failed, but then we see that you retook it and you got a significantly higher score. What happened? So they'll look at your faults in your application, and they might ask you, like, hey, we noticed that your GPA was bad here and now it's better. So can you explain that? What happened? They're going to ask that question, and don't see it as they're trying to look down on you. It's like, oh, they're judging me. Other people who didn't have a bad MCAT score, or other people who have better GPAs aren't going to be asked this question, because they probably aren't, but they're interested as to what happened in that time span between that changed things around. It's like, as for me, I told them when I first took the MCAT, I took a program, I took Kaplan, and I expected the program to teach me, and I failed. And then I was like, when I took a second time around, I went ahead and got some resources, and I studied on my own time, and I was dedicated and focused on where I was weak, and I learned how to dissect the test on my own. I was determined to get a better score. I was determined to not let somebody teach me, but rather I wanted to teach myself to improve, and they really, really liked that. So those are the top 10 questions that I found to be kind of a recurrent theme in my 9 interviews that I had. Granted, not every school asked all these questions, but they were just pretty much a general idea and synopsis of what you will be asked. So yeah, thank you guys for liking this. Thank you guys for watching this video and getting this far. I really do appreciate it. Please drop a like, leave a comment if this helped. I'd really appreciate it if you guys would go ahead and give some feedback, share it with all your friends. I would really appreciate it if you shared it on like forums and chats and with all your friends who are interested and who are pre-med. I'd be really grateful for that. So please do ask me. Please do share. I'd really appreciate that. And if you guys have any questions, do ask in the comment section below. I will try my best to help you guys out and try to respond to some comments, but I can't guarantee you that. It's my 3rd year in medical school, and rotations, clerkships aren't that fun. I'm not saying that they're not always fun, but it's definitely, you have no time. So when I'm on free break, maybe I'll respond. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please drop a like and all that good stuff. You guys know the system. Anyways, yeah. Please subscribe, help me get to 1,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate that. And see you guys in the next video. If you guys have any ideas, drop them in the comment section below and I'll talk about it, maybe. Anyways, see ya. God bless.